Good evening, trustee members. I would like to welcome Charter Trustees to this virtual meeting of the Bournemouth Charter Trustees and to the press and members of the public who are viewing the live stream of this meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded for live and subsequent broadcast and will be published on the council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone present follow these ground rules for speaking. Only speak when invited to by the chairman. Always turn on your video function when invited to speak. And please state your name before you speak if you have not been introduced by name. Some people may need to dial into the meeting and will therefore mute your microphone when you are not talking. And if you would like to speak, please do so by utilising the raise your hand feature in the bar at the top of the Teams window. The messaging bar should not be used unless you are raising a point of order or providing the wording for a motion. And please remember that this panel is visible to all and subject to public information requests. If at any point there are any recommendations moved that require a formal vote, these will be carried out by a roll call of Charter Trustees present and asking for a response of for or abstain. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and that mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Thank you. I would now like to turn to the agenda, and as item 1, Chief Exec, we have apologies, and I think you know the names of those that have apologised for not being in attendance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have apologies from Councillor Marcus Andrews, Councillor Mike Green, Councillor Nicola Green, Councillor Andy Jones, Councillor Toby Johnson, Councillor Lisa Lewis, Councillor Rachel Maidment and Councillor Tony Trent. I know that a number of other members haven't dialed in. I don't know if anybody has any other formal apologies to give at this stage.
Are there any forthcoming?
Madam Mayor, I'm not aware of any other apologies. It's Karen here, unless members, Charter Trustees have further apologies to report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we move on to agenda item number 2, declarations of interest. And Chief Exec, I do believe that there is one declaration registered.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That councillor hasn't yet joined the meeting, so at this point, no declarations to declare.
Would we need to go back on that? Should they join us at a later stage?
I'll keep an eye on that and let you know.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Agenda item 3, confirmation of minutes and matters arising. Charter Trustees are asked to receive the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of October 2020 and to consider any matters arising. Does anybody have anything that they would like to bring up? Matters arising? We take that as read. Thank you. Agenda item 4, that is now the Charter Mayor's report, and I will be happy to present that. Charter Mayor's report, January 2021. Since the last Charter Trustees meeting, I have continued in my role as Mayor by supporting the local charities and residents. Most, if not all, of the meetings were held via Skype or Zoom. Councillor Mohan, could I please ask you to put your computer on silent? That's kind, thank you. Most, if not all, of the meetings were held via Skype and Zoom. I attended as the current president the Chest Help meeting. On Sunday, the 8th of November, a scaled-back Remembrance Sunday service was held an hour earlier than usual at the War Memorial, and in attendance were the following: myself, accompanied by the Chief Exec, Graham Farrant, the Champion for the Armed Forces, Councillor Dave Kelsey, the British Legion flag bearer and the bugler. And this was far from the usual ceremony of respect by trustee members, the local cadets and the armed forces and dignitaries. I hope it won't be long before we can return to normal situation. In addition, a wreath was laid in the lower gardens in the memory of HMS Phoebe, Bournemouth's adopted warship during World War II. Also, another wreath was laid at the Crescent in the memory of the Metropole raid that resulted in the greatest loss of life the town was to suffer at any time in its history. Over 130 civilians and Allied military personnel were lost. On Wednesday, Armistice Day was held, again scaled back, with the same attendees at 11 a.m. On the 12th of November, I joined my chaplain, Rabbi Maurice Michaels from the Bournemouth Reformed Synagogue, with Reverend Dr. Ian Terry of St. Peter's Parish Church, which is our civic church, and Imam Majid, I'm so sorry about the pronunciation, Majid Yassin of the Islamic Centre and Mosque for an interfaith community meeting. The purpose was particularly to make sure that Bournemouth residents were being supported during the coronavirus pandemic. It was reported that each of the faith leaders with their congregation were contacting their congregants and others with friendship and support. I have attended various team meetings with Democratic Services, Hazel Randall and Caroline Suter, who are the Bournemouth and Paul's mayoral PAs. And on the 24th of November, we had an invite to attend a Zoom meeting with Brigadier Graham Jock Fraser, MBE ADC, Royal Marines, the Naval Regional Commander of Wales and Western England. Last year, I attended the Bournemouth School for Girls Founders Day. However, this year I was asked to provide a video message from the Mayor. I was asked to turn on the Christmas lights in Southbourne, which unfortunately had to be declined. There was a budget meeting followed by a budget workshop. An invite was received from Reverend Ian Terry to read a lesson from the lectern on Christmas Eve. This too, unfortunately, had to be declined. There were a few Charter Trustee briefing meetings. The final event before this evening's Charter Trustee meeting was the Holocaust Memorial Day, Be a Light in the Darkness, which I believe was well attended by over 260 people, including some members present here today, who I am sure will agree that the speakers recounted very, very moving stories. Thanks to Linda Ford Horn for arranging this event, which she has done for many years. In conclusion, may I take this opportunity to thank the National Health Service, especially those frontline workers locally in Bournemouth and Paul hospitals, the staff who are rolling out the vaccines, all of the carers and social workers, all shop workers, bin operatives and many more. And last but not least, the police force, who have been providing high visibility patrols to support the National Health colleagues and members of the public attending to be given their vaccine, and also at supermarkets and within the community. That concludes the Charter Mayor's report, and now I'd like to move on to item number 5 on the agenda. I call on Dan Povey, Responsible Financial Officer, to present the report of the budget and precept for 2021 to 22, circulated with the agenda at item 5.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Charter Trustees. Can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes, thank you, Dan.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So this report sets out the recommended budget for next financial year, which would result in a council tax requirement of £147,956, as you see in the recommendation. The detailed budget itself is in Appendix A, and that builds on the discussions that we had and the guidance received in the budget workshop held on the 9th of December with different nominated charter trustees in attendance at that workshop. The main features of the budget, following on from the workshop, are that in the main, individual budget lines have been maintained at their current levels, so that the base budget is inherently fit for purpose going forward when we actually get back to normal after the end of the pandemic. So that's a key feature of what you see in Appendix A. We've reviewed stationery, postage and accommodation costs, and we've reduced them 3 budget headings to reflect the actual cost that we forecast the charter trustees incurring. We've added a modest investment income budget into the picture, and we've also had a significant review of the salary and recharges that are made to the charter trustees. The main change in the recharges is the accountancy recharge, which has gone up to £3,450, and the salary recharge has gone up to £89,200. There are detailed calculations for that in Appendix B, which the charter trustees can see. And in terms of the salaries, it's basically we've added in the costs of the head of democratic and the deputy head of democratic services, which didn't feature before, to give a fairer recharge to the charter trustees. Appendix A shows total expenditure of £156,000, and that is funded from the precept of 147,000 and a one-off contribution from reserves of 7,994. Coming on to reserves, charter trustees will see in paragraph 16 that we carried forward into this financial year the £7,994. That was as a result of underspends last year. And if all things go according to plan, there will be a significant underspend in the current year because of COVID-19 and the curtailment of the activities that the charter trustees have carried out. So we anticipate adding just over 36,000, so that by the end of the financial year, we should have £44,663 in reserve. That would be 30% of the proposed precept for this year, which with the RFO's recommendation would be on the high side, and I would probably recommend somewhere to get us going closer to the 20% mark. So that both allows us to make that contribution to next year's budget of 7,994, and I also propose that we don't contribute any more into reserves next year as part of the budget. All things being equal, you'll still have 25% of your precept in reserve, and that, once we've closed this financial year, would give the opportunity to charter trustees to see if they wanted to spend that on any one-off items of expenditure. In terms of the tax base, this is the number of properties that the charter trustees can spread their. That's actually gone. Paragraph 21, it's gone down from 63,942 to 61,887, and that's really a product of the pandemic. The cost of council tax support has gone up, which is reflected in that, and we've also amended the collection rate. So that affects BCP as a whole, and obviously affects the Bournemouth Charter Trustees. The other thing that's affected the tax base for Bournemouth Charter Trustees is the community governance review. So, of course, there's a new parish being set up from the 1st of April next year, Throop and Holdenhurst Village Parish Council, and that's about 300 properties, and the chartered trustees cannot charge into that area because they raise their own precept. So that's why the tax base has gone down, which is unusual for a financial year. So bringing it all together, Madam Mayor, paragraph 26 sets out what that precept would mean in terms of a council tax increase. So in the current year, we're levying £2.15 on a Band D. If we take the proposed precept of 147,956, divide that by the tax base, we get a proposed Band D of £2.39. That's a 24 pence increase, so is fairly modest. That's a year, fairly modest in terms of pounds and pence, and is an 11.2% increase compared to the previous year. When we did the budget workshop, it was the view of the attendees there that although the percentage in itself is high, the actual pounds and effect on the taxpayer was such that it was affordable. That was the feeling, and we are actually looking at a 16% rise when we did the workshop, but the savings that we've achieved in accommodation has tempered that. I should point out that the draft settlement for local government, charter trustees are not subject to referendum limits for their council tax increases. We do need that confirmed in the final settlement, which won't come out till February. But you know, the budget has been put on the basis of the draft regulations, as are council tax increases up and down the country, and it would be unusual for them to change it in the final iteration. So that, I think, are the main features, Madam Mayor, of the budget. Shall I leave it there and see if there are any questions?
That would be very kind of you. Would there be any questions from members?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor.
Yes, please, Councillor Kelsey.
Yeah, it was just a quickie. You said that with the parish council, they would not be paying anything into a precept. So does that have any influence on the future mayors of Bournemouth would have no dealings with that area? Because if the mayors are still going to be taking part and doing things for that area, I really don't see why they're not paying part of the precept towards the cost of the mayors.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Kelsey. Yeah, it's the legislation. I mean, I suppose it would be a decision for the charter trustees whether they were to go and carry out activities within that parish. The rules under the council tax legislation is such that you can only have one local precepting authority in any one area, and the definition of a local precepting authority is a parish or town council and or a charter trustee. So we're bound with the mechanics of the financing, if you like. It would be a decision for the charter trustees whether to venture into that parish or not.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Povey.
Councillor Kelsey, your comment will be noted. Thank you. Agenda item 6. May we move on to that, Mr. Povey?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I think there's a hand from Councillor May Haynes. Sorry.
Yes.
I think Councillor May Haynes has her hand up. Sorry.
May I ask a question, please, Madam Mayor?
Yes, of course.
It actually relates to the following item, which is the financial regs. In there, paragraph 4.5, it actually says unspent provision in the budget shall not be carried forward to a subsequent year. So I'm just looking for clarification from Mr. Povey, because we are carrying forward unspent balances from last year's budget. So I'm just wondering, how does that work with paragraph 4.5 in the financial regs? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. And Mr. Povey, I can see you're nodding your head. So
thank you, Madam Mayor. And yes, thank you, Councillor Haynes. Yes, you're quite right. The paragraph 4.5 is aimed at the individual budget heads. So if we underspent, for example, on the Remembrance Parade, we wouldn't carry forward that underspend on that particular budget head to the following year. The budgets would start again. Any overall outturn, so the bottom line, so in this case for this financial year, the 36,000 that we're being underspent, that of course is charter trustee money that will go in as a pot into the reserves of the charter trustees, and it will be up to the charter trustees at a resolution of a full meeting on how to utilise them. So you're quite right, paragraph 4.5 does say that, but it does actually, it's meant to refer to individual budget lines within the annual budget. That's a similar theme to what we have at BCP Council and other councils.
Thank you, Councillor Haynes, and your comments will be noted. Thank you. May I now, Mr. Povey, move on, because it's you again for item number 6, which is the financial regulations.
Could I just check, Madam Mayor, that in terms of voting for the recommendations,
Yes.
because this will result in a precept and a charge that we
yes,
just
indeed. Understood.
Madam Mayor, can I just come in at this point? It's Karen Tompkins. Obviously set out in the report are the recommendations which were based on the issues that Mr. Povey has raised with you. As he's quite rightly indicated, this is to set the budget for 21-22 and to set your precept, which we then have an obligation to notify BCP Council as the principal authority. So we need to take a formal decision in the context of those particular recommendations. The third of those recommendations just makes reference to the outcome of the external auditor's review last year. So whether you wish to take a formal roll call, Madam Mayor, or whether you wish to do it by way of dissension, but we do need to take a formal decision. In addition, I think we have a further hand that has been raised, which I think is Councillor Brown and also Councillor Borthwick, before we go to the formal vote.
We'll take those two speakers. Thank you, Ms. Tompkins. Councillor Borthwick, I don't know who was first. Hello?
Madam Mayor, I think Councillor Brown was first.
Right.
And then Councillor Borthwick.
Yes, so Councillor, would you go first then before Councillor Borthwick? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I read through all the budget report. I don't know whether it's for a comment, whether from those trustees who were on the budget group that looked at this. And obviously we're looking at, I know it's a very small amount of the council tax, but an 11% increase in our precept for sort of residents in Bournemouth. And I can certainly relate to why the accountancy charge is significantly higher. You know, £500 I think was budgeted before. For an operation of this scale, you know, that seems inadequate. So a few £1,000s seems sensible. And obviously changes in the big changes, obviously the staff recharges, and to an extent, I guess, you know, we are where we are, and that's something we need to accept. But where we've carried a lot of the budget lines over from the previous year, although we haven't spent them, we've carried over those similar budget lines. I just want a sort of clarification about the logic of that. I mean, because I suspect we're not going to be in the coming financial year as active as in a normal year. So the logic of why we're keeping a normal sort of budget on all of those lines, like hospitality and all of the civic events, mainly the civic events and the civic budgets, there's some significant costs in there which I can't anticipate we're going to be spending during 2021-22. So I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts, because I would prefer to see our precept just kept frozen this year rather than any increase, although I accept it's a small proportion of the overall council tax.
Mr. Povey, could you respond to that, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I suppose my comment would be that if we do reduce the base budget now, and I fully understand what Councillor Brown is saying, if we were to decrease it now, when we do come back into normality, if you like, you're going to be looking at a council tax increase to get us back to where you want to be, and this really, you know, it's an 11% today. It keeps the base budget the same, and limits that increase to 24p. Now, you could of course defer the increase if you like and freeze the precept, but you would by my reckoning, you know, you're going to have to take out something like, I think, nigh on 15,000 out of the budget to freeze the precept. That's on my quick calculation. And if you wanted to go back to normal, you would have to add that onto the precept, and we'd suffer a council tax increase at that point. And at that point, I couldn't say, you know, crystal ball, whether the charter trustees would be subject to a council tax referendum limit or not.
Would you like to come back on that, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I'll see whether any other sort of trustees have got comments on it at all, and particularly those that are involved in the sort of budget meetings and budget discussion, just around their logic, because it seems to me in the civic budget and civic events budget, you could find substantial reductions just for next year, because I don't anticipate we'll be spending up anywhere near those, and we could freeze the precept if we wanted to.
We'll note, Councillor Brown, your comments, and may I move on to two other people who have their hands up. So, Councillor Bothwick, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still. We got two parish councils in Bournemouth. One was the parish of Holdenhurst, and this new one is Holdenhurst and Muscliffe. Do you know about that? Holdenhurst is a parish, and they have now invented another one with about 30 people for Muscliffe and Holdenhurst.
I thought it was Muscliffe and Fruit.
It's only a small part of it. Fruit.
I can clarify that, Madam Mayor, if you like.
Yes,
sorry. Sorry about it. Muscliffe and Fruit was absolutely right. So we've got two parish councils, but you're only allocating one.
We as we speak now, we've got one parish council, which I think, which way round is it? Is it Throop or is it Holdenhurst? Richard Jones will know. We've got one at the moment.
Which is Holdenhurst.
It's Holdenhurst. We've got one at the moment, Holdenhurst, and that doesn't raise a precept. So therefore, at the moment, we can spread the Charter Trustees charge over the whole of the BCP area. But once in the 1st of April, we won't be able to do that because they're joining to form a larger single parish. So we've got one now and we'll have one next year, but it'll be a larger Throop and Holdenhurst, and they'll be raising a precept, and therefore we will lose out about 300 bandees.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Povey. And I also can see a hand raised by Councillor Kelsey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on a comeback from what Councillor Brown's been saying, and I fully understand where he's coming from. As at this moment in time, I was designated to be the next mayor of Bournemouth, and with the hopefulness that we will all be coming out of this COVID nightmare, I would like to think that actually the mayor of Bournemouth will be doing a hell of a lot more work next year, because I think it's going to be one of their roles, along with the chairman and vice chairman of the councils, to try and get the town noticed again and to encourage people in to do business meetings and things along those sides of things. So I think, for this year, I think we should leave it as Mr. Povey has suggested in the budget. And if we don't spend that, then maybe next year we could then freeze it for that year if that was necessary. But I just have a feeling that we might be required to do a lot more work this year than what's been done in the last year, because obviously we've done nothing in the last year. And I just think we're going to be there. And I think the public will be wanting us to be encouraging them to come back to do things. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And Councillor Kelsey, if I can say that the year before, we sometimes had 4 functions, if not more, at the weekends and most evenings, and it was an extremely busy period. So you're looking forward to returning to the same, experiences of, what can I say, popularity. It's not popularity, but it's doing the role of being the mayor in the public arena. And it is very popular, and we are needed.
Madam Mayor, not to interrupt, but just to let you know that we have 2 requests to speak, one from Councillor Anne Filer and one from Councillor Hazel Allen.
Yes, and who was first, please?
Councillor Filer first.
Okay, Councillor Filer, would you like to bring forward?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to say much the same as Councillor Kelsey, and I think it will be the ambition of us all. I'm talking to Councillor David. It'll be the ambition of us all that once we get out of this dreadful time, but not only do we have the same as we had before, but that this summer will be just a raft of events and reasons to be happy. And I think everybody, with staycations, with people not wanting to go abroad, not daring to go on a cruise, I hope that Bournemouth will be really buzzing in the summertime. I hope we're out of it. And I hope that we need that extra money. And the increase is very modest per household. And the problem that Daniel Povey raised was that if we do freeze this year, we've got to get back next year. And if, as we hope, we're going to be really full of events and full of excitement, we might be frozen. We might not be allowed to get back to that level. So I think it would be, given that it's such a modest increase per household, we should leave it as it is. And let's hope that we spend it all in this coming year. It would be fantastic if we do.
Councillor Filer, thank you. Your comments will be noted. And Ms Tompkins, I can't remember who the second one was that you mentioned, please.
It's Councillor Hazel Allen.
Oh, okay. Councillor Allen, are you with us, please?
I am. I'm not going to switch my camera on because I've got some issues with IT and it freezes as soon as I do.
Understood.
I think I'm following on from Councillor Kelsey and Councillor Filer, and certainly as a town centre councillor, you know, we need to bounce back from this. We need to support our high streets. We need to support our residents, and I hope that Dave is once David becomes our mayor, that he's going to be rushed off his feet. I think it's hopeful that we will be spending money and doing lots of events, and I would support us not changing. Thank you.
Councillor Allen, thank you very much. Again, your comments will be noted. Is there anybody else with raised hands at this point?
Madam Mayor, I'm not seeing any raised hands. If you want to give it just a few seconds just to double check, then you may wish to move to
the next agenda. Oh, a decision, indeed. Yeah. And do I hand over to Mr. Farrant to actually deal with that? May I? Are there any dissents? Is that the question you would like me to ask?
That would be helpful if you could ask that, Madam Mayor, as the starting point.
Yes. Are there any dissents? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Brown has raised his hand again.
I've just noted. Councillor Brown, over to you.
Just to dissent, I vote against on the budget. Yeah.
Is there anybody joining Councillor Brown with that dissent? Or a dissent?
I think that's Councillor Farquhar.
Yes, indeed, I am against, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Are there any others?
Noted, thank you.
I think Councillor Burton has raised his hand, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Burton, would you like to speak?
I'll just say I'll abstain from this one.
Okay. That'll be noted too, thank you.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify, as we stand at the moment, I have Councillors David Brown and George Farquhar voting against the recommendations and Councillor Burton abstaining. I'm not seeing any other indication unless I've missed. So if that is the decision, Chairman, the recommendations are set out in the report are agreed.
Thank you very much. So we'll just give it a moment just before we conclude and record those votes. Thank you. We'll take that as read. Thank you at this stage. May I now move on to agenda item 6?
You may, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I call on Dan Povey, busy man tonight, responsible as financial officer, to present the report on the financial regulations circulated with the agenda at item 6.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this report deals with the financial regulations for the Charter Trustees. The regulations basically govern the conduct, financial conduct, internal control and financial management of the Charter Trustees, and they apply equally to Charter Trustees and the officers who are serving you. Since they were established on the 1st of April 2019, the Charter Trustees have used BCP Council's financial regulations, which really came out of a product of local government and ensuring a safe and legal landing for the Charter Trustees. But now that you're established and following on from the internal audit report that was presented to the August Charter Trustee meeting, it's appropriate now that the Charter Trustees have their own bespoke, more tailored financial regulations that more suit the scope of operations of the Charter Trustees. So that's what this report is about. The financial regs are included in Appendix A, and They're based on a template. I think it comes from the Association of Local Councils. It's similar to what was used by Christchurch Town Council when they were established on the 1st of April 19. But I've gone through it and I've amended it to make it relevant to the Charter Trustees for Bournemouth. Paragraph 7 of the report just details some of the main things that the financial regs talk about. So the appointment of officers, responsibilities, the responsibilities of the responsible financial officer, me, and the responsibilities of the charter trustees, which can't be delegated. They include things like setting the budget and the precept, as we've just done, approving the annual accounts and governance statement, and addressing audit recommendations. So they're things that must always come back to the meeting of the charter trustees. The financial regs are backed up by a scheme of delegation. You'll find that in Appendix B. That's really derived from the authorities that are set out in the financial regs, and it defines, again, what officers can do and really what is reserved matters for charter trustees. And it seeks to maintain a separation of duties between authorising expenditure, making payments, the sound sort of internal control that you'd expect to see. And that in itself is supported by Appendix C, which just talks about the banking arrangements and the bank mandate and how we separate setting up payments with actually making payments. So they're the main 3 documents that form really the financial regulations. You'll see charter trustees in paragraph 11. As we were going through and revising the financial regs, it became apparent that really we should take the opportunity to improve some of the procedures and make them more relevant for the charter trustees in terms of banking and the finance system. So instead of using the BCP bank account and just being part of the BCP council, what we're suggesting is that the charter trustees actually have their own bank account and their own part of the BCP ledger where they're separately identified. That will aid transparency and reporting, but is a balance between achieving that goal but still benefiting from cost efficiencies for economies of scale from staying under the BCP banking umbrella. So I think it gives us, what we need in terms of a transparent audit trail, but doesn't mean you're costing you the earth. So they're the main features, I think, of the financial regs, Madam Mayor. Rather than go through them in fine detail, I'll pause there for any questions.
Are there any questions from any members? No? And are we needing to take any, Karen, are you wanting to speak?
Madam Mayor, if you're happy for me to come in, I think I'd refer members to the recommendations in that report and ask the Charter Trustees whether there's any dissension from those proposals.
Thank you. Do we have any dissensions? Silence probably means none. So could we record that there are no dissensions, please?
Yeah, so that's a unanimous decision, Chairman. Thank
you. Am I able now to go on to the next item?
Please do, Madam Mayor.
And that's you. So it's agenda item number 7. I call on Karen Tompkins, Deputy Head of Democratic Services, to introduce this item. Thank you.
Just switch on my camera. Thank you, Madam Mayor. You will recall that an initial draft of the risk register was brought to you back in August as part of the outcome of the internal audit report. The Charter Trustees agreed to establish a small working group to look at the risks that were facing the Charter Trustees. We've undertaken that work and we've taken away the comments from the Charter Trustees and incorporated that into the updated document that you have before you. Prior to circulation to the Charter Trustees, the revised updated risk register was circulated to the workshop. I didn't at that point have any sort of feedback or further comments. Madam Mayor, this is before you for the Charter Trustees to agree. The one issue that I would highlight that it is an evolving document. It's one for us to keep under regular review. If there are future risks or changes to risks, then obviously we want to take the opportunity to keep you as the Charter Trustees up to date. So the document is before you to approve, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank all those who participated in all the work for your hard work. Thank you. Do we take a vote now, whether everybody's in agreement that everything and its content are in order? Is that the next situation for us?
Yes, Madam Mayor, unless there are any questions that Charter Trustees have.
I see no hands at this moment, but Ms Tompkins, can you?
Yes, Councillor Kelsey, who actually was the chairman of our working group.
And he and his team I'd like to thank. And Councillor Kelsey, would you like to comment, please?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I'd like to say thank you to Karen for the work that she helped us with this. In fact, most of this was her brain work. She guided us all in the right way. The only parts I see, there are two parts on that risk register where there is a possible 9 risk. But my own personal feelings on that are that providing all the other sections before that are done correctly, we would never get to that 9 risks because it would all been covered when we're actually preparing to do those such events. So it's a bit of a misnomer being there, but we have to put it in because there is a potential for that risk to be there. But providing all previous items were attended to properly, we would never get to that risk. So I just want to allay the fears of anyone thinking, oh my God, we can't do that. It's not like that. It's purely there to point out that there is a potential for a risk if other things were not done properly. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment at all before we decide that it's approved or not? Any comments? Okay, so we won't be taking any votes there. So all that's left for me now is to declare this meeting closed.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I just
not yet. Yes.
Can I just refer you to agenda item 8, and if you're happy, I'm quite happy to take members through that item.
I am so sorry. My finger is on item 8, ready for the next item. I'm sorry. Request from previous Mayor of Bournemouth, and I call on Karen Tompkins, Deputy Head of the Democratic Services, to introduce this item. And we should have Nigel Hedges possibly with us, but has he arrived?
No, Madam Mayor, Nigel Hedges has not joined us.
It's over to you then, please.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Madam Mayor, if I can advise members, as the agenda indicates, this is a request that has been submitted from a previous Mayor of Bournemouth relating to 2 chess cups. Photographs of those chess cups have been circulated with your agenda papers. This related to a chess competition that was set up or supported, I should say, by a previous Mayor of Bournemouth in 2008-2009. At that time, 2 chess cups were purchased by the late Sir George Merrick. And those chess cups related to a competition that was operational in Bournemouth at the time. And the winners of those competitions received their presentation from Sir George Merrick, the late Sir George Merrick, and the Mayor of Bournemouth at the time. Obviously, we as Charter Trustees, prior to the 1st of April 2019, undertook valuation of all of the assets which were being transferred to the Charter Trustees. I have to be honest, Madam Mayor, at that time, these cups were not included for that valuation. Back end of last year, the cups did return to the Charter Trustees, and at that point, they have been added to the register. The request has come before you for you to consider in the context of whether They fit the criteria with regards to historical assets within the control of the Charter Trustees, and what approach that you would want to take in the request from the Bournemouth and District Chess League for the cups to be returned to them. Subject to how you wish to proceed, Madam Mayor, I would advise that this needs to be consistent with the financial regulations that you've just agreed, and appropriate checks and with regards to any legal positions. So we have very limited knowledge at the moment in the context of the confirmation of ownership, but as this request has been made, we as officers felt it was appropriate to bring this direct to you, to Charter Trustees, for your views and comments. I'll try and answer any questions that may be raised on the issue, Madam Mayor.
So, Ms Tompkins, is this wanting a delay so that it can be further looked into, or is it just discussion now amongst trustees?
Madam Mayor, it's for you as Charter Trustees to determine how you wish to proceed with this request.
I can see a hand up from Councillor Filer. Would you like to? And I also can see Councillor Rampton as well. So, Councillor Filer.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a question first, which is, the Chess Association would like the cups back. Is there any guarantee that they will continue the use of them? In other words, run a competition every year for someone to win these cups? I would hate them to take them back and then they just sit on a shelf along with some other redundant trophies you see in golf clubs. So that's the question. I might come back on that if I may.
Ms Tompkins, would you like to respond to that?
If you want to take any other questions, I've got some information, so if you can bear with me, hopefully I'll be able to pick up on that point, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rampton, I can see your hand raised too.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and agree with Councillor Anne Filer. I just feel that this new administration is one that likes to retain and protect our assets. So very happy for cups to be awarded as long as they ultimately retain, stay in the ownership of the Charter Trustees. I don't see why we would give away an asset. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another raised hand, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it was just sort of related to that. Obviously, it says that they were donated initially, but it says they were also purchased in 2009 for £200 each. I'm assuming they weren't purchased by the council, just because it says they were donated by Sir George Merrick somewhere in the report. And just to double check whether we've got any sort of more up-to-date valuation of them, or whether it would be easy to arrange a valuation to inform any decision that we make.
Madam Mayor, I'm quite happy to come back on that issue.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just to clarify, that the cups, as far as I'm aware, were actually sponsored and purchased by the late Sir George Merrick for £200 each, and there are different age groups for the competition. They haven't been valued together with the other Charter Trustees assets, because they weren't actually being held by the Charter Trustees at the time of the last valuation, which was in just prior to the 1st of April 2019. So we don't have a current up-to-date valuation of those particular assets.
Thank you. I can see that there's another hand raised by Councillor Filer.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I think it would be. I think it's pointless to give them away, but I would like to see those cups. I would like future mayors. We've got one putative future mayor sitting here in the shape of David Kelsey. I'd like to think that we, the Charter Trustees of Bournemouth, will continue to run that competition as part of all the different activities that we have in this town. And I think I don't know if I need to give a formal proposition, but I can't see why we would want to give those assets which were given to us and were quite valuable. I hadn't realised that if they were £200 in 2009, they're going to be worth some money now, which we'll hear from Karen in a minute. Why would we want to give them away to the Chess Association? I just would like to propose that we don't give them away, but that we do use them and that they do come back into use. I think was former Mayor of Bournemouth, Stephen Chappell, who was very keen on the chess competition, and it was really popular. And then a subsequent mayor, could have been anybody, just wasn't so keen, and the thing fell into lack of use. But it is something that children do, young people do, very popular. And it would be a terrible shame if we lost that for no good reason. I can't see any good reason why we want it goes away. If you need a formal proposition, I'll propose it. If it's just a comment, that's fine.
Ms Tompkins, would you like to come back on Councillor Filer's comment?
Yeah, I can just come back in the context of an earlier question that you raised, Councillor Filer. Yes, I understand that they do wish to continue with the competition, but I think the proposal is that this will include schools that are outside of the Borough of Bournemouth area. So they may cover schools that are across the BCP area. The other point that I would raise is that depending on what the views of the Charter Trustees, how you wish to proceed with this, we're not able, as the agenda item says, definitively confirm the ownership of these particular assets. So obviously we'd need to do some more work from that perspective. But yeah, just for clarification, we understand they would like to continue with the competition, but it probably would involve schools outside of the Bournemouth Borough area.
Thank you. Can I move on? I don't know if Councillor Dunlop was next, but there's another hand to the left and another one to the right. So in which order do I take them, please?
Madam Mayor, if I can just confirm, the hands have arisen Councillor Bartlett, Councillor Dunlop and Councillor Borthwick, in that order.
Okay, so did you say Dunlop, Councillor Dunlop first?
No, Councillor Bartlett.
Bartlett, thank you. Councillor Bartlett, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree entirely with Councillor Rampton and Councillor Filer. Assuming that we do, the trust does own them, then we should retain ownership. But there's no reason why they couldn't be loaned out to the chess leagues for use. And if that was a formal proposal tabled from Councillor Filer, I would happily second it, and so we could then move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms Rampton, would you, I'm so sorry, there was a notice on the chat, sorry. Councillors, do we take the next Councillor Dunlop now, please? Councillor Dunlop.
Madam Mayor, it was started by Councillor Chappell when he was mayor, and it does say it's the Bournemouth chess competition. I think it's important that actually retains a local flavour, actually, and I think that as the trustees, it's probably for us and the mayor of Bournemouth to actually award this cup. So I'd be very loath to see them go out of our ownership. In fact, I'd like to add something else into the mix. I'd like us to maybe just look a bit more closely at the chess competitions, because there is a lot of talk about chess at the moment, and the probability that there will be other chess competitions coming forth, and in fact the potential for an event. So I think that I'd perhaps just like to say that we do retain them and we actually re-examine their use or where they're used. That's probably it for now. Thank you, Madam.
Ms Tompkins, would you like to come back on that one?
As far as I understand, and I don't, this would obviously need to be subject to clarification. The expectations of the Bournemouth, I think it's the Bournemouth and District Chess League, if I've got that correct, is that it would be a competition that would be outside of the Bournemouth Borough. But I totally take on board the points that, as Charter Trustees, you've made. I think the understanding is, the principle is you'd like to retain the cups, but it clearly is that we need to do some more checks in the context of what the competition may look like, whether that is within the borough boundaries as Charter Trustees. And obviously we do need to pick up the issue of clarification in the context of valuation, and also where does the ownership sit, because we're not in a position at this point to confirm that with you. I don't know whether that picks up everybody's point. If I've missed anything, please shout.
Karen, we have some hands up. Can you confirm that before Councillor Kelsey that there's nobody in the waiting situation?
Yeah, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So just to clarify, Madam Mayor, it's Councillor Borthwick, Councillor Coote, Councillor and Councillor Kelsey.
Mayor, I attended the Blind Association's annual event at one of the hotels, right? And they were very enthusiastic as a group, come every year, and about 30 of them come along. But Ian Clark, who we all know, is very interested in chess and very enthusiastic, and goes up to Liverpool to play. So the chess personnel are very, very involved in Bournemouth. And having looked at the 2 cups, which are quite plain, and if they're engraved, they're not worth hardly anything at all, I can assure you, because you'd have to melt them down, because you can't re-engrave them and put Christchurch and cross out Paul. So once something's named, it reduces the value a lot. So all I'm saying is that if you contact Ian Clark, because he's very much to do with this league, and I'm sure they would use the cups very, very well. I don't think you need worry about them anymore at the end of the day, and just let us retain the ownership, but please use them on behalf of whichever.
Thank you, Councillor Borthwick. Thank you. And Councillor Coop, I believe you also would like to speak.
Yes, Madam. Thank you for that. Just on exactly what Councillor Borthwick has said, but during our mayoral year, the chess competition, which was open to all the local schools, due to the lack of uptake within Bournemouth schools, it was open to Poole and Christchurch schools, and we actually went to and presented the cup to one of Poole schools and also to a school in Christchurch that won the cups. So I think now with BCP, that perhaps the boundaries should be within the BCP rather than open it up to, say, outside BCP of Ringwood, further afield. Let's just keep it within BCP. Thank you.
Could I just invite as a final speaker, Councillor Kelsey, and
sorry, Madam Mayor, there's actually, sorry, it's Graham Farrant. There's 3 other councillors I think they've indicated as well, Councillor Bobby Duff, Councillor Kelsey and Councillor Lawrence Williams. Could I just make a suggestion that actually we don't have a proposal for you here. Can I suggest that we take it back as officers, talk to some of the trustees, work out what some parameters might be, talk to the Chess Association, etc., and then bring it back to you as a proposal? Because I think at the moment it was an idea. Exactly. That idea has clearly got more complicated, more complicated as we've gone through. So I suggest we bring it back if that's okay.
Sensible suggestion. Thank you, Mr. Farrant. So is everybody happy with that? That we'll take it away and for it to have further discussions? And then bring it back again.
Mayor,
yes.
Madam Mayor, I absolutely agree with the Chief Executive. I was going to suggest the same, but perhaps if we incorporated it within the Culture Compact paper, and once obviously the ownership has been defined, I appreciate that's the first point, but then to work in front of the Chief Executive saying to how we utilise it and move forward, perhaps within the Culture Compact would be the best place to do that.
Is everybody happy with that at this stage? No dissent on that. Lovely. That's what we'll do, please, Chief Exec. And if that could be minuted, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So I just want to say to everybody, wishing you all well, please stay safe. And I bring this meeting to an end. And thank you all for attending.